Open Forum coming to you live on 106.1 FM every Saturday 4 to 6 p.m. Jagat, Dinkar and Subodh welcome you on the best talk show in Houston, Texas. When you talk, everyone listens. This is Open Forum.
All right, welcome back to Open Forum. Ladies and gentlemen, it's 4 p.m. in Houston, and whenever it's 4 o'clock in Houston, there's only one show that you should be tuning into. It's called Open Forum.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely, no doubt about it.
103.5 FM, 107.9 in Austin, and humfm.com. All over the world. So we have listeners calling in from God knows where sometimes, and we just love them.
Yeah, all they need to do is they need to download the app.
Right. humfmradio.com.
That's it. And they can listen. And that is where Smithy was listening to.
That's right. Last weekend when I was traveling
in the plane, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Wow, look at that.
Were you sitting next to the pilot? Maybe that's right. That's the only reason you could hear us.
I would have missed that show, so I was like, let me tune in.
Welcome to Open Forum. This show today is sponsored by the Indo-American Chamber of Commerce of Greater Houston.
Yes.
We partner with them for the last several years. We've been partnering with them. If you remember.
I would say at least 10 years now.
Well, yeah, but this show called The Business Hour for about 3 years now. If you remember, Sonal had given us this idea many years ago, and we took it and we are running with that idea. So every month we have a program called The Business Hour.
Right.
And today we're going to be featuring one of my most favorite person in Houston. I have a lot of favorite persons in Houston, but this is one of my favorite.
But did a person say the favorite?
Well, I have many. So one of the favorite, yeah. Her name is Melisha Patel, and Melisha is a dynamic personality. And ladies and gentlemen, that's Melisha Patel right there. We are, by the way, live on Facebook, so you can go to the IACCGH book, the Facebook, whatever, and see it out there, and it's going to be fun. The show is going to be awesome. It's going to be very inspiring. We want to know who Melisha Patel is. She's one of the youngest CEOs of two great hospitals. I mean, to become a CEO of a hospital is tough enough. Then to become one at age 38 it's an Herculean task. Then to actually have two hospitals under your wings is like impossible. But Melisha did that at age 38. She was the CEO of two big hospitals, 1,500 employees. And you can imagine every day coming to work. First, you got to take care of your husband at home, which, they see husbands how they are. Then you got to take care of two beautiful children, send them to school, make sure their lunch is ready, etc., etc. Then to come and take care of not just the employees, but the patients, the amount of patients that we have in the hospital. And we're going to talk to Melisha about that, two big hospitals. She has so many firsts. I'll say I've known Melisha for almost 15 or 16 years now. When she first started off as a Six Sigma belt,
Six Sigma black belt.
And she would come to our. I was in the medical executive committee, and she would come in and talk to us. And I'm like, this young lady is going to go places. She was so amazing, the way she presented all her data and the vision that she already had. Very soon, she had a few stints other places, but then very soon we knew at Memorial who we wanted to bring back, and it was Melisha. She became the director of our surgical center in the hospital, inpatient, and rapidly rising then to become, as everybody at Memorial, our leadership recognized that this is a person we cannot lose ever, rapidly rising to become the COO, the Chief Operating Officer. And, during at that time, she was given a task of building a new hospital along with the existing building, a 60-bed new hospital and a whole new plaza. And this young lady, oh my God, she did a fantastic job. She was this young, desi, 36-year-old girl at that time, at that time. And I know she used to have meetings with these big burly guys with hard hats, and she would have this little hat on her, and she was directing them. I need this hospital to be open yesterday. You cannot keep delaying it. And boy, that hospital has turned out to be one of the most beautiful buildings and structures out there. And it was all Melisha's. Of course, she had a big team working with her, but she did a fantastic job. And then to add, there's so many feathers that I can, add to her hat, but she to add another feather to hat was there's the most prestigious award that hospitals or big businesses get in the country called the Malcolm Baldrige Award, which is a federal award. Basically, it was instituted many, many years ago. Very few businesses get that award, and you have to have like the best results. And I'll tell Marisha will talk about that. And there was one year that we came very close to winning the award, and we didn't give up. And under her leadership, she took that under her wings and said, "We're going to win it next time." And next year, we just blew the wings of every examiner who came out there, and here we were. We got that award, and that was the first in the entire memorial system. And after that, I think Malaysia's phones were like off the hook because they wanted to know how did you do it, and a lot of the memorial hospital wanted her advice.
How do you do that? Find that secret now.
And we're going to find out.
So particular, and doing all these things. So such a wonderful thing.
Well, the introduction I gave is it's like a 10% of what she really is. We're going to find out about the.
Well, let me ask you one thing.
Yes, sir.
Is there anything that you do not know
about her?
About anything?
I know very little about nothing. That is the problem. I'm luckily I've been blessed with some memories, and they keep coming back, and that's how. So, Malaysia, welcome to Open Forum. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I feel like I should leave the show now.
Wow.
You helped tell my story.
Well, yeah, but we just kind of superficially glanced at it. We're going to really dive deep into it. But again, welcome to Open Forum, the Indo-American Chamber of Commerce. You're the board member out there. You've been a board member of the Fort Bend Chamber of Commerce and so many other things. One of the things that she was in 2019, she was an honorary of the Business Journal, the Houston Business Journal, 40 under 40 upcoming CEOs and business leaders are recognized, and she was amongst them, and that's a very prestigious club to belong to.
Absolutely.
And we were so proud when she got that. So again, we'll talk a little bit.
Which was also there, I think, not in the same list, but
this year.
This year, right. So the Chamber of Commerce of Greater Houston, the Indo-American Chamber of Commerce, it's a premier organization in the country. Attracts so many different organizations and individuals to become members. And their gala is supposed to be in October. We'll find out if that's going to be going on or not. But here is Malaysia, one of the board members, Malaysia Patel. Well, Malaysia, tell us anything I missed out. Well, let's get stuff from the beginning. We want to know who are you, Malaysia? Tell us about Malaysia Patel.
Yeah, Malaysia Patel.
Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you for having me on Open Forum, and I also want to thank the Indo-American Chamber of Commerce of Greater Houston and all the great work that they do in the community, and the partnership that they have with organizations here in Houston, in addition to the work that they do in India. And so it is my pleasure and honor to be here joining you all today. I guess I'll get started. A little bit about me. I'll start with I'm a mom. Married to an amazing husband, Bhavesh, and I believe he's listening right now. And my two boys, Jay and Avi, and I told him I'd give them a shout out, so just want to say hello to the boys.
Yeah, hey, hi guys.
I'm sure they're so proud of you.
I'm sure they're probably listening on on Facebook or on the radio.
On the radio, and they're the most well-behaved young children I've ever met in my life.
Well, tell them to download the app, so they would be radio sometimes do not get you.
Right?
So I think they need to download the app.
Right. So, yeah.
So, been married for the past 13 years. I've been in Houston for 14 years. Born and raised in San Antonio, Texas. My parents are born in India from the state of Gujarat. I'm a first-generation American.
Nice.
And my immigrant story is similar to so many others, which I'm happy to share in the show today as well.
Yes. Yeah, we will.
We would love to.
And so you went to school in Dallas, did you say? Or
So I did
San Antonio.
San Antonio.
Yeah.
Born and raised in San Antonio, and I did my undergraduate in Austin, Texas. I was a biology major and decided to do a business foundations program.
Right.
So I minored in business. And, for many years, I thought I was going to be
With a biology major, you didn't decide to go to the medical school?
Well, that's what she's going to say.
That's what my dad had wanted for many years.
Right, and mom too, probably.
My mom too. And I thought that's what I wanted as well. For as long as I could remember growing up, I've always wanted to help people. Or, I've stayed many nights when my grandma was hospitalized, or my great grandfather, or just family members. And I knew that I wanted to help people. So I always assumed I was going to be a physician, had every intention when I went to UT. That's why I was a biology major, that I was going to be a physician. And when I started the Business Foundations program, I had an opportunity. I saw a flyer that just caught my eye. And there was a guest speaker from Trinity University that was going to speak to the Masters in Healthcare Administration program. And so
Again, it's San Antonio.
So you did your MHA?
I did my MHA in San Antonio. And, I went to this, the seminar that they had on healthcare administration, and I just fell in love with the idea, to be able to make an impact for a community.
Right.
And, I'm the kind of person that I do get really attached to my family and my friends. And I thought, as a physician, gosh, it's a huge responsibility to be taking care of lives and building these intimate relationships with patients, that I said, you know what? I'm going to try to do something a little different. I love all my family and friends, and I felt like that was weight enough. So I decided healthcare administration, and I've loved it.
I think it's a great field. Actually, I have an MHA from Texas Women's, and I think it's a great program.
It is. It's just it's in the work that the leaders do that have graduated from MHA and MBA programs.
Right.
They're truly making an impact in the community. And so I do want to recognize Trinity University and all the great programs that are out there. So after UT Austin, I went to Trinity, and I got my master's in healthcare administration. And we have something called a residency program. So just like our physicians, once they finish med school, they do their residency. For the MHA program, we also had a residency program. So I did a 1-year residency at the VA in Dallas, the Department of Veterans Affairs.
Right.
And it was by far probably one of the most humbling experiences to work with our veterans.
Wow.
And we were able to do some amazing things, start programs. We had a polytrauma program for soldiers coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan. And so after a few years at the VA, I was ready to make a transition. And I transitioned and started at Tenet Healthcare Corporation. Now, Tenet is a for-profit healthcare system. I was there for a few years. And then 14 years ago, I started at Memorial Hermann. And so I could definitely share the journey there, but this is my 18th year in healthcare for me.
Wow. Fantastic. Before we even dive into that, I'd like to know a little bit more about, you're a Patel.
I'm a
Malisha Patel. Do you know any Patels in Houston? And your husband, Bhavesh, how did you all meet? Where did you all meet, and how did you all meet? Tell us some stories about that. We want to know a little bit more about you before we go into your professional, acumen and your accolades.
Well, I'd like to say I have a pretty good story when it comes to my marriage with Bhavesh. For as long as I could remember, my grandmother and my parents have been talking about the day I get married, probably since I was like 5 or 6 years old.
Right. That's the typical conversation of the community.
Yes.
Right.
When are you going to get married? And so even when I was in college, it was okay. Once you're done with college, you're going to get married. And my father is very hardworking entrepreneur, definitely a vision of the American dream. My parents have worked so hard, and they've always imagined that I was going to marry a doctor or a lawyer or a dentist. But they had a vision in their mind.
Right. Macy's think like that? I don't know that. What a surprise.
What a surprise. It's either a doctor, engineer, or of course.
Exactly. And so, within my family, believe it or not, I mean, Bhavesh and I just got married 13 years ago. Wow. But even then, everyone in my family had an arranged marriage. And I told myself, like, for as long as I remember, I'm going to have a love marriage. I mean, the fact that in this day and age, we're still talking about a love marriage or arranged marriage,
right?
But that was a big deal. Yeah. And I had
some of the families, it still is.
It is. It is. And it's difficult depending on the family environment and dynamics. So in graduate school, I had a few colleagues that said, "Hey, Malisha, we know this Indian guy and he's Patel, and you guys would be great together. And I said, hey, just because you know someone else that's Indian doesn't mean that.
And a Patel.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that.
It doesn't mean anything.
Well, they probably thought one Patel is awesome. Patel Square would be awesomer, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Just make it easy.
So it was a few years later. We ran into each other. I had one of my girlfriends that I went to graduate school with at her bridal shower here in Houston. Bhavish was there.
Wow.
And, we started talking and the journey from there, I think it was over a year until we got to a point where, hey, we want to be together.
Yeah.
So when you saw him for the first time, did you think that, hey, this is the guy?
I did.
Awesome.
Love at first sight.
The love at first sight.
Yeah.
I knew it. I was like, there's something about him, and I think he's going to be the one.
Yeah.
And
Good choice, though.
Really? What field is he in? Like,
he's in banking. So it's funny that you ask, because when I told my parents, because at this point,
right.
my parents were still showing me biodata pictures, trying to connect me with people. Like, you look at this guy, everything.
Aajo.
Yes.
Saruj hai.
Exactly.
And then you're looking at these pictures, but you're here, it's Bhavish right here.
Exactly.
And you're like, na Saru nathi, chalo aage badho.
And so after, a few years, my dad's like, people are worried, and then is everything okay with you? He said, you have to think about everyone else. Like, if you don't get married, then who's going to marry your cousins and then your sister?
Okay.
So this pressure just came on.
And how old were you then?
I was in my mid-20s.
Okay.
And so then Bhavish and I were finally at a point where, we want to tell our parents.
Right.
And so I still remember the day, I was in San Antonio with my dad, and we're driving in the car, and he was telling me about this boy, this biodata.
Yeah.
And I said, Dad, I found someone. And I said, and he's Patel. And
Did your dad screech on the brakes like that?
no, I made sure we parked first.
I bet he asked, is he a doctor? Did he say that to you?
Well, that was one of the first 3 questions, right?
Had to be.
But my dad's like, well, what village is he from? And, I said, well, he's Patel, and he's this type of Patel, because, for those of you that are familiar, there's different types of Patels, different regions.
Yes.
Oh my God, it's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable.
So you probably know about it, but
Well, I don't know the details.
being a Gujarati in that part of the world, you know what.
There's only one type of butcher, I know that. So tell us about types of Patel and how this led on to then, the next move.
I'm a Leva Patel.
Okay.
And my now husband Bhavish is Jordita Leva Patel. And so no one in my family at that point has married outside of Leva Patel.
Gotcha.
Correct.
And
Wow.
so, we had this conversation. My dad seemed engaged. I was really happy. That evening, I went home and I told Bhavish, I told my parents. And he's like, okay, well, I'll tell my parents too. And then the next day I wake up in the morning and my dad has 3 biodatas in front.
Still.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, I told my dad, I go, Dad, this guy, he's great. He comes from a good family. I go, he has a really good job. So Bhavish was at that time in investment banking. And my dad's like, what? He's a teller?
Banking teller, yeah.
And I said, no, Dad, actually, Bhavish does really well, and a lot better than I do. And I think it was just hard for my dad. And the fact that he didn't have a role in choosing who that person was going to be.
Yeah. This is a typical thing, Subodh, particularly coming from this community, even in many other communities in India for that matter. But this Leva Patel community comes from the South Gujarat. There are Patels everywhere. For example, he's from a northern part of Gujarat, and there's also a Patel community there, which is much different than the Patel community that she belongs to. The area that I come from in Gujarat, they have a different kind of group, which is 6 Chogam Patel. Okay. And then there's 12 Gam, and then 24 Gam, And the 6 Gam daughter would never go to the 12 Gam daughter. But if they did, it would become 18 Gam. You're right.
Exactly right.
And this is really a huge problem even today.
So let's find out how they got together then. I mean, who gave in? Your dad, his dad? What happened? How were his parents' reaction at that time?
They're Bhavish's parents. They're wonderful. They're supportive, and they were.
He's also Leva, right?
No, he's Leva.
Ah,
different.
It's I saw right.
And I think Bhavish's parents were supportive for the most part, but because it took so long for my dad to approve. I mean, it got to a point where my dad said, this is not going to happen.
Right.
And at the time, I was interviewing for a job here in Houston, that Six Sigma Black Belt job that Subodh had mentioned. And so I had an opportunity in Houston, and I told my dad, I go, I'm going to move to Houston for this opportunity. And he said, no, you're moving for the boy. I know it. And I said, no, it's not. I go, this is for me. This is for my career. And I said, and he's also going to be there. And my dad said, well, if you move, and if you're still interested in this boy, then don't come back. And I said, Dad, it was like an ultimatum. Yeah. And I was like, Dad, after all these years, it's not supposed to be like this,
like a Bollywood movie.
Yeah. And so, I told my dad, I go, Dad, just meet him, just give him the chance, the opportunity. And at that point, he was like, well, no. I've made up my mind. And then he said, just like a typical Indian uncle, he's like, and don't you dare go talk to your grandparents or your aunts and uncles and ask them to step in and help.
Whoa. This is like a movie. I love music there.
Yes.
Folks, you're listening to Open Forum.
I hope your dad is listening.
You're listening to Open Forum on 103.5 FM. On telephone number out here is very easy. It's 1-888-749-1035. 1-888-749-1035. We're talking to Malisha Patel. She's the youngest CEO in the memorial system that I've known, taking care of 2 hospitals. And it's just an honor that we have her on Open Forum. We're talking to her about Malisha Patel, the person, in this half an hour. She's telling us about her marriage. She's a Patel. Her husband now was a Patel, but these Patels clashed a little bit. Right. And we're trying to figure out, how did you finally get married to him then? I mean, you came to Houston, and then what happened?
And so I moved here, and I had, I had great support. Bhavish's brother and sister-in-law lived in Houston, and so they were supportive as well. And they're like, it's going to work out. But it got to a point where Bhavish's parents were like, well, if they don't think my son's good enough, then I don't know if we're interested as well. And so there was tension. So, my dad.
You do realize 100,000 people are listening to you.
Oh my God.
Including your family.
And half of them are Patels.
You know that.
I'm going to get a lot of calls. You're going to be in trouble, dude.
The good thing is we're married now. So
I think the story is also that, look, if you're in love with someone,
Exactly.
Forget who or where or what the family is. Make sure that, you like someone, you want to marry that person. She did it, and I know both of them. They're just awesome people. So then, what happened? Who gave in first?
So, my parents were going to India, and they were going to stop by and visit me in Houston. And I said, I want you to meet Bhavish.
Nice.
Okay.
Nice.
And I said, and if you don't like him, then we'll figure out next steps.
Mm-hmm.
But at least give him a try. So they came into town for dinner, and we went to a nice Chinese restaurant in town. And I'll tell you, that was probably the most tense dinner we've ever been on.
Yeah.
So it was myself and my mom, my dad, and Bhavish. And my dad knew everything about Bhavish at that point. He did his own research as well.
He did his own
And he had one question. He said to Bhavish, like, Tarugam, right?
Yeah.
And so that was the one question for Bhavish, is like, what village are you from? And then my mom and I had the rest of the conversation, and you could really cut the tension with the knife.
Of course.
And then Bhavish, he's such a gentleman. He paid for the dinner.
Nice.
And I don't know if my dad was too happy for that, because this is his entire life. My dad's been paying for dinner.
So there was a fight on the table, though. No, money though. Bill Mano Apo. You give me the bill.
That's always with him, that's right.
So he didn't have the opportunity to fight for it because he sneaked it in and he paid for it. And so
What a nice gesture.
yes, it was a very nice gesture. But we went home that day and I said to my parents, I go, so what do y'all think? And my dad's like, I don't know. I'm going to go to India and I'll think about it.
Nice.
And so he just left us in suspense. And I have one of my uncles tells me this really good story. So when my dad was in India, he has a friend that's in the same village as where Bhavish's parents are. And he called this friend and said, hey, I'm going to come visit you, but can you take me to this house as well? So my mom and dad and my mom had no idea what was going on. My uncle had no idea, but my dad, he knew what was going on. He actually went to his friend's house in the village, and then he went to Bhavish's house in India.
Oh, just to check it out.
To check out the house
Yeah,
in
I'm
India.
sure that village is
Absolutely.
very close by to you.
Yes,
right?
and so then within a few minutes, my father-in-law gets a call saying, hey, there was, someone came by and they just sat and
Did
had
you know
tea.
your father-in-law at that time?
No.
And he just calls you.
He called Bhavish.
Oh, called Bhavish.
So Bhavish had told me. And so my dad, he was doing his research. He was,
Yep.
Happy ending, though.
yeah.
Right.
And then so he came back. He
Yeah.
didn't even tell me he went to the house.
Nice.
I had no idea.
But you knew it.
But I knew it because someone had told me. And when he came back, he still said he wasn't decided. But it was interesting. A few weeks later, there was a funeral. And my dad was at that funeral. My father-in-law was at that funeral. And they had a mutual friend.
Nice.
And my father-in-law and the mutual friend were near my dad. And my father-in-law said, if the kids want to be together, we should let them be together.
Oh, that's really nice.
And I think at that point, my dad had a decision. And believe it or not, within 1 week, we had what we call a chanlo, which was like an engagement.
Right.
And we were done. We're engaged. Yeah.
In defense of your dad and Bhavish's dad, they see parents. Remember, he came from India, and there's a different, era that he came into. You were born in San Antonio, a different mindset. In defense of your dad, I think most dads would have done something like that at that time, 13, 14 years ago. So in his defense, but in your defense, you guys were awesome. Both of y'all stuck to your guns and did it. What a happy ending.
Absolutely.
It's beautiful. Happy beginning, actually.
Right.
That is fantastic.
But I would honestly, yeah.
We're on Open Forum, 103.5 FM, humfmradio.com, 1-888-749-1035 is a telephone number. We're going to, from this first half an hour of knowing who Malisha Patel is, we're going to go to the next after your question.
No, Mike, it's not a question. It's just a kind of, I guess everybody knows it. Her story really is a good story.
Right.
But I've known a lot of and heard a lot of horror stories about particularly weddings, even in the same community.
Mm-hmm.
But that is not what we are here for.
Right.
But in that respect, you're absolutely right that the parents are always going to be concerned about particularly their daughter.
Right.
When it comes to son, they're little easygoing.
Yes, they are. I have always told my parents, they always had a different standard for my brother. He was able to hang out with friends, stay out later. It was just always a little different.
A little different. And so, we are so happy that it ended so well. Actually, this is a very typical thing what happens in the Indian family.
Mm-hmm.
As you said, the parents come here, even they are educated, but they come from a totally different culture.
Right.
And they come all of a sudden in a culture where it's so difficult to fit into,
Right.
Because basically you're part of a bowl, it's a fish bowl.
But I think the message that we're trying to send to the 100,000 people who are listening today is that, look, let the youngsters decide. Of course, you make your inquiries if you have to. You definitely
They're just looking out as parents. I think they're just looking out if your girl's going to be happy or if it's going to be a good family.
It has to be a
happy. That's all they're trying to do. And I think culturally,
in her defense, didn't she know? Before she decided to get married with Bhavish, of course she.
when you are maybe that young and you're in love, and I'm going to be just very honest about it. I think there's some things we overlook sometimes, but parents are actually looking long term. And I think in his defense, that's all he was checking out if everything was okay.
I think his intent was positive. Yeah.
He did a great job.
Yes. And
that's why he was smart enough to know that that was right.
I think I give her a
Not
credit
everybody does
for waiting for a year or so to convince her dad and mom that, hey, he is the right person for me.
Right.
And that's remarkable.
One time on Open Forum, I'm going to ask Jagat for 2 hours how he got married. I want to know.
I was clean bowl.
One time,
I was clean bowl.
Let's move on to the next. The first half hour is over. Let's move on to Malaysia.
Actually, I was in a cricket match in Ahmedabad watching Test cricket.
Right. And you got married.
And that's where it happened.
All right.
I do want to say one more thing that I do think my parents and my family overall love
each other. Yeah.
And they've accepted him, and he is, the Jamai that they just love. And, when we go home, it's not like what I want to eat. It's, what the Irish wants to eat. And he is on a pedestal.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's great.
Folks, you're listening to Open Forum. Let's move on to the next subject matter out here, and that's Malaysia Patel as a rising star and how she became a CEO and the journey that it took her. Obviously, right now we're seeing a different Malaysia Patel. But
correct.
13, 14 years ago, she was different, right? So you said you joined Memorial Hermann. What was your dream at that point? I mean, you said you joined as a Six Sigma Black Belt employee or whatever they're called. What are they called actually?
Six Sigma Black Belt.
Okay, so at that time, what were you thinking? Where was your vision going to carry you? Or did you ever think that you were going to one day become a CEO? But take us to that journey, please.
So I'll tell you, I don't know, this sounds horrible, but I've never dreamt this big. And I put a vision statement together, had to as far as the exercise for school.
Right.
And I said I wanted to be a chief operations officer one day.
Wow.
And that's as far as I took it.
Mm-hmm.
And in that vision statement, I said, I want to have a family and I want to have kids. And this was a part of who I've been growing up, is making sure that I have that core, that I have a family.
Right.
And so I never thought that I would be able to do something like this, or be a CEO and also have a family. And so that's as far as I wanted to go. And
you thought that being a COO, as far as you go, would be a good balance between having a good family life and a work life, right?
Exactly. And so I truly am just humbled and honored every day just to have the opportunity that I have. But so I mentioned to you, I was at the VA and I worked for a for-profit. And when I started Memorial 14 years ago, I wore many different hats. I was a Six Sigma Black Belt, and then I was an OR director, then the director of ops, and then the chief operations officer. And I took on many different roles. And it was never just me. I want to make that clear, that it was always a team. A team approach. We partnered with, whether it was the employees, the leaders, the physicians. It was always a team. And I've had some great mentors, and some of them.
Yes.
Greg Harrelson, Rod Brace, Jim Brown, just so many great people that I've always had the opportunity to mentor and learn from. And after my COO role, and you mentioned the expansion project, I was a part of a $60 million expansion project. We added beds, we expanded multiple services. And
how did you feel at that time? There's one thing being in operations, and it's another thing getting a building started, because we gave you a deadline. So Malaysia, we want this hospital open by X date, and you did it. How did you feel? Did you go home and sweat at night? I'm like, what the heck is going on here?
Oh yeah, many times.
So tell us a little bit about that.
There's been meetings that I walk in sometimes, and hopefully the partners or contract partners we work with are listening.
They don't listen. They don't know what Open Forum is.
But sometimes I'd walk into meetings and I'll pinch myself, saying, okay, you got this, even though I didn't know what was happening or how it was going to, play out. But whether it's making sure things stay on time with working with contractors with the construction project, learning about, we had several catastrophes that occurred as well when we had burst pipes. And it was a lot of learning on the ground.
Right.
And I think we have to all allow ourselves some time for grace and asking for help. And I was just
Asking
around
for
so
help.
many
I
good
think that's
people.
very important. Asking for help. Don't think you know everything. Reach out and ask.
And asking for that.
Yeah.
Melissa, being so young, I mean, I'm thinking about, what you aspired for and how you came about your journey. What would you say? And I know there's a lot of things which attribute to your success or you're obsessed for that success. What would you say by far, being a woman, being a for different this thing, what would be your most positive thing that you would say that led you to this kind of success?
Hard work. And there was a point in my life where I said, gosh, I must be really lucky. But it's not.
No.
It's absolutely not. And I've had to reflect on that many times. And it has been hard work. It's been working evenings and weekends, and priorities over time change. And especially when you have kids as well. But, whether it's work and sometimes in your life, I love my social life and my friends, but you may not get to see them all the time.
And to keep that balance.
And to keep the balance is hard.
So hard.
It is. But I'll tell you at the core is the upbringing. And I've seen what hard work looks like.
Your parents did that.
My parents did that. And I've had family that did that. And so there was never any looking back, or you can't do this. It's just, you keep going and you work hard. And I truly believe that that's been at the core of it, is working hard.
And how hard is, I'm sorry, and how hard it is. And I'm just asking you this because, I work in the private environment at the hospital too. And I just feel like sometimes it is a man's world. Like, don't get me wrong for saying that, but sometimes it's very hard on a daily basis to fight that. I mean, can you give us an example, or not even just? Don't even give us an example. I don't mean with words, but just a daily scenario. Like sometimes it's really hard.
And I'll tell you, I think I've always had to work even harder. I've had to work even harder. I look young. I'm petite, and so sometimes I could pass for a volunteer at the hospital, and
a high school student.
But
even that you're so young, that there are a lot of people who would just look at you like, no, So it's a little hard.
It is.
And again, because I've been in the same room as Melisha. Yes, when she walks into the room, she looks really young, very petite, very soft-spoken. But when she takes charge of the meeting, you better step back too, because you'll be in trouble. And that is she just takes charge, and she knows what she's doing, and she tells everyone that I am in charge of this. You're my team, but I'm the leader, and she does it very effectively. So
but this is a great message, and I want listeners, and I want a lot.
We always say, don't judge the book by its looks. I mean,
absolutely.
Very, very tough. Absolutely. When it comes to that.
Don't come with preconceived notions.
Yes, and I'm sure there's been meetings, and I go into a room with a whole new set of group that I don't even know, and people don't know that I'm the leader of a room, and they may go to my male counterparts and start the conversation, and then we sit down at the board table, and I think everyone is like, oh.
It's you.
Absolutely.
And that's happened, but there's been times where I thought, gosh, that's not fair. But at the end of the day, it's what you do with it, right? So for me,
absolutely,
I say, well, at this time, this is how I get to know the people for who they really are. How are people working the room?
Right.
And I'm not changing who I am. I'm not going to be someone that I'm not. I'm not this authoritative person that's I'm this person. But what you see is what you get.
Yeah.
Right. And you're not putting yourself in that.
The other thing about Melisha and meetings, sometimes when you see in a meeting, all the chairs are full.
Right.
And someone else walks in. I would see Melisha walk out, pull a chair. Here's a CEO of a hospital, pull a chair and invite that guest and say, sit on this chair. I got a chair for you. That is a leader. That is something that inspires others to do the same thing.
But like when you started initially, I'm sure that she came across many incidences like that. She talks about that it's quote unquote is a man's world.
Right.
And when she walks into a room or she walks anywhere into the hospital, people would think, well, who is she? Just like you said, that could be a student, could be a volunteer. And sometimes for a man, at certain position or her counterpart, it may be a little difficult to accept her as a leader of the hospital.
Right. And you said volunteer. By the way, Melisha at age 16 was a volunteer at the hospital. What are those called? Candy stripers? Candy stripers. And I bet at that time she must have blown everyone off. Let's go to the next step of you becoming a COO when I think it was Jim, when he must have approached you. And what were you thinking at that time? Wait a minute, this is what I thought of many years ago. And here I am at age 32 or 33 when you actually became the COO. Tell us about those moments.
So, my CEO at the time was Jim Brown, and he was actually transitioning. And we were talking about this opportunity coming up as a COO. And Greg Harrelson came in as the CEO at that time. And so there was a transition, and, they were looking for the right fit. And I raised my hand and I said, I want the opportunity. And let me tell you what I've been able to do.
Right.
And I was in awe when I was given the opportunity. I was also expecting at that time, and for a while,
that was your first,
and I was like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to be a mom and be a COO? And the best thing about it was I had a great team, and they said, you could do this, and we're going to work together. And
the support at home.
And I think that's a huge thing, is how your partner supports you at home.
Oh, and I could go on forever about Bhavesh, but I don't think I would be able to do what I'm doing if I didn't have the support at home. Wow. And I know I am very blessed when it comes to that, because he's probably my biggest cheerleader.
Yeah.
When I've been given opportunities and I'm like, hey, should I do this? And he's like, yeah, why not? Mm-hmm. And, he's definitely the person that's always been behind me, advocating and
cheerleading
me. Yeah.
At the same time, Melisha, that you were proactive, when the opportunity came, you said you went there and said, hey, listen, I want this chance. How many people would go and talk like that,
Yeah.
So I think the credit goes to you, of course, gets to the family and the Bhavesh and many other, but you raised that.
And I think that's a belief in yourself.
And the belief in yourself, and says you can do the job.
Yep.
Folks, you're listening to Open Forum. This is the business hour. I think it's going to become the business 2-hour show out here. And we love it because we are enjoying the show.
And remember, while we were having coffee, Melisha was asking, is this for 2 hours?
For 2 hours.
2 hours. No, that's like
even you would not realize how fast 2 hours goes.
So I want to thank the Indo-American Chamber of Commerce of Greater Houston for putting this together. And Darshak Bhai, who's behind the scene out here, behind the camera, I would say thank you, Darshak Bhai. You did a great job. Our number out here, if you want to join in, is 1-888-749-1035. Melisha, tell us about then at the COO level. You were there for about 2-3 years. Tell us your challenges that you face and the feathers that you've got in your hat. For example, the building that you made or the Baldrige. Tell our listeners about that too.
So you mentioned that. So for those of you that aren't familiar, Malcolm Baldrige Award is the highest award given for performance excellence in the country. And we were on this journey for 7-8 years because we felt with the team that we have, the processes that we have in place, that we are Baldrige worthy. And we went through state evaluations. And then, as Subodh mentioned earlier, we had the national examiners come see us as well. And I know we were disappointed when we weren't recognized for it, but then we had an opportunity to show them again. Mm-hmm. And
the very next year.
The very next year. And what the criteria looks at is, your leadership, your strategic planning, how you focus on your customers, and overall your outcomes.
Right.
And how is it reflected in patient outcomes? Mm-hmm. And that's one thing I've always been proud of is at the core of what we do, we focus on safety. Mm-hmm. And this Baldrige criteria that we challenged ourselves with, it made us better. It wasn't never about the award, mm-hmm. but how are we as an organization going to get better? And there's this criteria from from the United States under the Commerce cabinet, and we wanted to apply it to us as a business, and how could we get better? And there's moments that we were really high and just excited, but there were definitely some moments when we were disappointed. But the best thing was that we kept going.
The good thing about that was, Jagat and Smriti, it was, like Malaysia said, was not about the award. What we learned as physicians was a commitment from the administrators and Malaysia that, look, yes, if you get the award, it's awesome.
Right.
But the change, the process, how we can be a high reliability hospital, always consistent in, 100%, there's no failure there.
Right.
That taught all the physicians for those 2 years, and I was one of them.
Right.
That these guys mean business. We've got to make sure every patient, safety every time, same good outcomes every time. And I really commend you all for that, because that is what we learned as physicians. Because in the beginning, we all thought, oh my God, here you go. The hospital wants another award, but it was not about the award. We realized within a few months how good it was.
Actually, Actually, 1960, the concept of zero defect came out,
Yes.
Which is what you people are talking about in a different way.
Right.
But
It's the airline industry that set the
it was a big movement at that time in the 60s and 70s for a zero defect. 60s, it came, people came to know in the industry and they didn't really apply it. In the 70s and 80s, it was a big time application at every assembly line,
Right.
And then it became such a famous concept of zero defect all over the world that even in companies in India started applying that concept of zero defect.
Good point. Do you know what happened then? Tell us about the Indian companies that wanted to meet Malaysia Patel to learn about this Malcolm Baldrige, because once you got the award, you were being sought after. And tell us what happened to the delegation from India.
So as a part of, being a Baldrige recipient, you're committed to excellence. You're committed to continuing to be a learning organization and teaching people what you know and sharing those best practices. And so we had many organizations across the city and state and throughout the country come visit us in what we call learning days. And then Jagdeep from the Indo-American Chamber reached out and said, I have a group of healthcare leaders from India that want to learn because they're interested in applying the Malcolm Baldrige criteria. And so we had an amazing opportunity to host a delegation from India that came to talk to our physicians, to learn about our journey. And it was just amazing. The fact that what we're doing in this, in a Sugarland community could make an impact around the world. And so it was just great, a great thing to be a part of. So Bill, you also mentioned the hospital expansion,
Right.
And we've been able to continue to grow with the growth of the community. So in addition to building the 60 beds, we opened an additional 30 beds just a little under a year ago. And we continue to grow with the growth of the community.
And Memorial Hermann is such a hospital system in Houston. Without that system, we'd be collapsing out here. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the tough times that the hospitals have gone through due to COVID. But I wanted to go step one. The next step is from COO, which you did fantastic. How did you become a CEO of not one, but two hospitals, which has never been seen in the history of, I guess Greg did it before you, but for a short period. Tell us your journey to that CEO position.
Well, so I'll take it one step back. After a few years in the role at Sugarland as the COO, I transitioned to Memorial Hermann Southwest, which is right down the road on 59 in BeachNet. And I was the COO at Southwest, which is a 543-bed hospital in the Southwest corridor, busy community.
Huge hospital.
And
it's a safety net. I call it a safety net in that area. I mean, every person can go there and get well treated. So
yeah, it's just definitely amazing. And it was very different than the Sugarland Hospital.
I bet.
But I'll tell you what was the same is our focus on providing great patient care, focusing on safety, our focus on our employees, amazing doctors. And so it was just a different community that we were serving.
Right.
So I was at Southwest as the COO for a little over a year, and the entire system, Memorial Hermann Health System, healthcare is constantly changing. And we're very agile as a system, as an organization, healthcare in general. they made the decision that, we want our hospitals to work and partner together
Right.
Down the corridor. We shouldn't be competing against each other. We should be partnering together. And so I was given the opportunity to be the CEO of both the Sugar Land and Southwest Hospital. And most of our Memorial Hermann hospitals, all the CEOs have 2 hospitals.
Yeah.
And so that is just the new structure that we have.
Recently, right?
That's something new.
Very recent.
Yeah, it is. I think they have one CEO for like Southeast and Pearland.
Pearland, yes.
Okay,
That's what I
yeah,
thought. Yeah.
Wow, that is amazing.
So it's been 3 years.
Right.
I've been in this role now for 3 years.
Wow.
There was a huge article in Houston Chronicle about, how the cascading effect happened when she became a CEO. But I don't want to go into, let her tell that story, the whole thing.
Well, the biggest challenge, Militia, as I've been in this community for 30 years, of course, and I used to go to all these hospitals that you just mentioned. The biggest challenge at Southwest Memorial has always been it being such a big animal, as I want to call it. It is always very difficult to govern. Do you see a difference in doing this for Sugar Land, doing this for, although you said the vision is the same, is the work the same though?
It's different to some degree. So as I mentioned, our focus on our key strategies, like strategic planning, our focus on our employees, on our physicians, that's consistent, but some of our initiatives are different. And, in the Sugar Land community, we've always partnered with the community. At Southwest, we've had to partner with our community too, but it's a different community.
Right.
And we've done some amazing things there over the past few years. We have this arm in Memorial Hermann called Community Benefits. And they've been around for many, many years. And so we have school-based clinics like in Lamar Consolidated. We're meeting the community where they are. And at Southwest, we've been able to do that to where I think we could be a role model for many organizations across the country.
Fantastic.
We have a community resource center that we've opened that it's not just for our patients, but it's for the community, where we'll connect you to a medical home if you don't have one. We even have a small food pantry because we know sometimes our patients have to decide, am I going to fill my scripts today or am I going to put food on the table? And so we want to make things a little easier. And so that's what we've done that's a little different is we've had to be creative to help the community that we serve. Just in the Southwest community, there's 80 different languages that are spoken.
One of the most diverse, yes.
And the demographics it's also one of the most diverse communities.
Correct.
And, from one of the wealthiest parts of the area to one of the least wealthiest, there's also a life expectancy gap, right? A significant one. And so what I truly admire about the Memorial Hermann Health System is our mission. It's very simple. We're a values-driven, community-owned healthcare system dedicated to improving health. And one thing that we've learned and heard a lot about over the past 2 years with the pandemic is the social determinants of health and how people have been impacted with COVID. And so we know as a hospital, we can only impact 20% of the individual's health in the hospital, but it's the other 80% that really impacts someone's health, where they're born, where they live, what access they have. And so we're trying to play a role outside of that 20%, outside of four walls. So that's just been just very rewarding to be able to do.
How much your outreach is incredible. Yes.
Lisa, let me ask you this question. Maybe it's not appropriate, but we're having said all this.
I love it. Let me ask you. I love the way you started. Let me ask you. It may not be appropriate.
We'll cut you off.
Cut me off. That's okay. That's fine. But saying all these things, good things about Memorial Hermann Hospital, which is a good hospital, no question about it. But what happens if someone makes a human mistake in the staff, and it happens in the hospital situation? How do you handle those situations? Whether even it comes to your ear, whether you even come to know at your level, or it just basically, it kills at the lower level.
Now, there's a process for everything. If you're a patient and there's a concern or a complaint, we have a grievance process. If it's, if it's an employee concern, we partner with our HR team. So there is a process for every concern or complaint that someone may have.
Yeah, and I've seen that firsthand because
Exactly,
in our meetings, these it gets escalated to a certain level, then it stops because it gets resolved.
Yeah.
And if it's not, then it keeps moving up to her level or the physician level in the executive. So yes, that's a great
Medical
question,
staff, yep.
but that is really, really something that people need to understand. No complaint is left
So I think
unsure.
every
Because what
hospital
happened,
has
I know an
committees, right?
incident.
Am I correct? So every hospital has committees which deal with a certain aspect. And I'm sure if it gets escalated to a point where it's not resolved, I'm sure you get.
If it's a quality concern, it has a different path.
Exactly.
So depending on where the concern is, that's
I
the
know
path we follow.
Quality,
I know a case that it happened, that for whatever reason, when the patient walks into the hospital, they put a wristband, with all the personal information.
Yeah, let's not go into details
but I'm just talking about it. And then that unfortunately, that wrong wristband was given to a patient.
Okay. All right.
And
I don't know how many years ago that was. That would not happen today, because we have scanners all over. So the first time you scan that, it shows up and pops up, and man, those alerts go all over.
Right.
So it may have been many, many years ago. I'm hoping with the technology that Memorial has, that is absolutely a rarity.
I'm not talking about Memorial. Let's
any hospital,
any hospital for that matter.
Because there are checks and balances in hospital, which I have. I mean, 30 years that I've been doing this, I have seen the growth and changes in IT and safety, etc. That is mind blowing. So it is.
And Jagat, what you mentioned is everyone in healthcare is focusing on being a highly reliable organization. We're in a business that we're dealing with humans, and it's humans doing that, and so mistakes are made, and that's not acceptable, and it's not right because we're dealing with lives. But that's why it is a focus, and I must say that for everyone that's in healthcare, safety is the number one priority.
I agree.
Correct.
Yeah,
folks, in listening to Open Forum, we've finished an hour already. We're going to move to the next step of knowing about Malisha Patel, who is the CEO of 2 hospitals at the Memorial System out here. We want to thank the Indo-American Chamber of Commerce for sponsoring and collaborating with us during this business hour. When you found out that Greg Harrelson, who was the CEO of Southwest Memorial and Sugarland, was being promoted to the medical center CEO. By the way, Greg is an awesome guy. He deserved what he got. Did people come and approach you, or did you again tell them, I can do this, give it to me? What did you say, Malisha?
It was a combination, and it was having that conversation with Greg. And, the first thing I did is I called Bhavesh, and I called him like 3 times, and he didn't pick up his phone. And so
typical man.
Then I called him.
He was in the meeting and back.
He was making money.
And then I called his boss, and he's like, hey, is everything okay? I said, yes, but I really need to talk to Bhavesh. He said, I'll have him call you. And so Bhavesh called me back, and he's like, hey, is everything okay? And I said, yes. I said, hey, there's this opportunity potentially. What do you think? Should I put my name in for it? And he's like, why are you calling me? Of course.
Yeah,
and he's like, okay, I got to go. Bye.
I like that. Straight to the point.
Straight to the point.
You're like, thank you.
Yeah.
So then there was a process.
There was a process, and I was given the opportunity, and it was, I think, Jagat, you had asked me at some point a question, what led you up to this point? And I'll tell you that every experience that I've had growing up, or every career opportunity that I've had, has helped me get to where I am today.
Right.
Because all the experiences that I've had, you learn what you want to do as a leader and what you're not going to do as a leader.
Right.
And so every experience has helped me get to the point I am today. And I'm still growing. I'm still learning every day. And so I think that's also important to share.
You're one of a hell of a driven lady, I can tell you that. Because a lot of people, they sit in position, they said, okay, let me take care of the family and let me settle down, instead of taking a lot of responsibility.
Right.
She is not one of those.
No, she's not.
She has a good balance between the two. That's what I admire about her, is that she's able to do both.
Right. And that's where we're going to step into the next one. The next door that we open. Go ahead, please. Yeah.
So a typical day for you, I just want to know how it is. And when you walk home after a typical day where people are looking up to you and you're doing all that, and you seem to be in power, what happens when you remove that and when you go home? I mean, it's, I always wonder about people like that.
All right. The first thing I do is I get into my sweatpants and, ask the kids about how school was and start working on dinner.
Yeah.
That's very important to me and to the family to always have dinner together.
Nice.
I'll tell you that, I mentioned earlier to ask for help. I can't do anything without the help that I have.
Right.
And so we've had our nanny with us for many years.
Right.
And she's there Monday through Friday and will stay till 5:30, and she will help meal prep for us. And so it does make the day easier when I get home. But it's because I have support to be able to do it, that I'm able to have dinner with my family. And so it's, whether it's eating a simple Indian meal as lentils or...
Hey, Gujarati meal.
Oh, that's right. At least once a week we'll do a Gujarati meal. And
Manisha, like just that emotional switch, the mental switch coming from a hospital, working all day, and then just because so many people are tending to you, and just that switch to sometimes...
That drive home is so important. Okay. So that drive home for me lets me transition. I end the day, I make phone calls to, folks that I need to at work, and then I start calling family. I'll connect with my mom. I'll connect with my sister.
What a great,
and so then I transition, and then I'm ready for home. And, work could be a long day, but you just have a different source of energy for when you go home. Oh. And, my favorite thing when I get home is my boys running to me and, trying to speak over each other. And I love that. I look forward to getting home and seeing them.
Great.
Fantastic. We're going to take a caller out here, the Executive Director of the Indo-American Chamber of Commerce of Greater Houston. Jagdeep, how are you doing, sir? Can you hear me? Jagdeep, can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah, go ahead, please. You're live on Open Forum.
Yeah, I just wanted to call in and commend Open Forum for all the great work you guys have been doing. The three of you together, especially being the new team member replacing the very handsome Dinkar Cheda, who decided to retire, have been doing a great job. And we are proud to be partnering with you. I also want to point out that Sonal and Malaysia were our Women Mean Business superstars many years ago. We did it at the Sugarland Hospital, and Malaysia wielded her magic wand and gave us an insight into the special helicopter that they use when there is a major trauma on the highways. So I got to look inside it without having a need. And I pray to God I never need to use it, but Malaysia made that happen. We've always known she was a superstar, and it took a lot of persuading to get her to agree to serve on the chamber board. The last time we had talked to her, she said, Jagdeep, I'm the chair of the Fort Bend Chamber, and we to make that effort to ask for their right and to rise to the best of their potential. So thank you, Open Forum, for making this happen. And thank you, Malaysia, for making the time to share your story.
Thanks, Jagdeep.
Thank you, Jagdeep.
Very, very nice. You just say that.
Again, Open Forum and the Chamber of Commerce, we want to say that we also
premier radio program out here. This radio station is awesome. As you see, the studio is unbelievable. It's like
you are the premier radio station.
Well, I like to blow my own trumpet sometimes, and I just did it. But what I wanted to say is that our partnership the last 3 years that we've been doing with IACCGH has been one of the most productive 2 hours that we do on every month, and I really want to thank that, that vision that the chamber has, that look, we can do this on the radio and have 50,000 people listening to us. And then we bring high profile people like you, and makes it even better for all of us. So it's fantastic.
I mean, the energies are great. The syndication is great.
It's
It's fantastic to reach out.
And again,
the studio is just beautiful. Just want to make sure I share that.
It is fantastic. And again, I want to make sure, and Jagdeep, you always do that. I do want to make sure we thank Darshak, who does a fantastic job every time we have a great guest. And he comes here, he puts this on, and we have a lot of people watching you right now, Malisha. A lot of comments have been coming. So again, thank you.
But more important, Subodh, we will also be sharing the recording with the community, because this program, once Darshak puts it on Facebook Live, he gives us a link to the recording, which will then be shared with the community. So you're right. Darshak needs special appreciation, and so does Bhavna in the office, who's running our Facebook as well. So back to you folks. I don't want to take time away from Malisha.
Well, we're going to do
a lot more important stuff to share.
Thank you. The next two segments are going to be, we're going to talk to Malisha about Malisha's involvement in the community, her mentors in the community, her people who she has mentored in the community. And the last half an hour, we're going to talk, because I'm getting a lot of messages here to talk about the COVID situation in the hospital. And we want to make sure people stay tuned in. That's going to be our last half hour. So the first half hour that we have is about 5:05 p.m. So for next 25 minutes, let's talk about the community you grew up in. It's always amazing how people get from the community, and when it comes time to give back to the community. You want to give us a little insight about your mentors in the community who you looked up to, and then your mentorship to the other youngsters that you have done. Please tell us about that.
When you first asked that question, what triggered to me is my community growing up. Mm-hmm. And I think that's played a key role in my role right now in the community. And growing up, my parents did a wonderful job keeping us connected close to our family. And so we did everything together. And we even helped out different communities together. Mm-hmm. And that piece of me, when I went to college, I was in a service sorority where we gave back and we did volunteer projects. And that's just something that I like to do, is to give back. Mm-hmm. And the role that I have the opportunity to be in right now, that's what we do every single day, is we're giving back to the community. And as part of this, I've been able to be active in different chambers, the Fort Bend Chamber of Commerce, Jagdeep mentioned, where I've been active, part of the leadership program there. We're active at the Central Fort Bend Chamber, the Indo-Asian American Chamber, and all of these organizations, whether it's Fort Bend Literacy, the American Hospital Association, March of Dimes, they're all doing great things in the community. And so for me, I like being involved because, one, I like to learn. I like to learn what these different nonprofits are doing and how could I work with them to help improve what they're focusing on. Mm-hmm. And Jagdeep mentioned Women Leaders Forum that they do. And I want to make sure I share this story because I had the pleasure of doing a joint event with Sonal Butcher. And she played a key role in my involvement in the community. And so when I was a director of ops and then a COO at the Sugar Land Hospital, I had told Subodh, I said, I want to get involved in the community. I hear you talking about what your wife is doing. How do I get involved?
I should brag about her, right? Yeah. I still do.
He used to say all these great things that she's doing. And I said, how do I get involved? And he said, I'm going to connect you to. And I remember having a conversation with Sonal, and I said, this is what I want to do. I like kids. I like literacy.
how could I continue to be active in the community, but in a different way outside the hospital?
Right.
And I just had to ask her once. Within the next few days, she had 3 different lunches lined up for me. And I had a chance to meet Carrie Schmidt. She is the president for Fort Bend Chamber of Commerce. Kelly with Fort Bend Literacy. But we just met with many different people, and within a few months, I was a part of that chamber or that nonprofit, and it left an impression on me. And then with the Indo-American Chamber of Commerce, she introduced me to them, and they have the Women Means Business series, and we got to co-partner and do a presentation together, and that was just an amazing experience. And I'll tell you one thing. In my upbringing, I felt like I've had, 2 different hats, the one I wear in the Indian community, and then, my professional, and I never really integrated it. And I saw this, beautiful lady in a sari at a gala, when I was in Sugarland. And I said, wow, who is that? And that was Sonal Butcher. And, she was a professional, and she was so proud of who she was as an Indian. And she did it so gracefully. And I just wanted to learn from her. And I'll tell you, she created a path for people like me to say, I could do both. I could be this Indian woman and a professional, and the world could clash, bring both of them together. And I've been able to do that. And so she's played a key role as a mentor in my life. And I've had many amazing mentors. And I encourage all the youth out there to have mentors, folks that you look up to, ask questions, learn from, because they help develop you as an individual.
Yeah, you couldn't say something to someone and it wouldn't be done in the next couple of days. One day she came up to me and she said, oh, you have a piece of land out there. What the heck are you doing with that? I said, I'm really tired of just managing the land. And as a joke, I said, why don't you just sell it? And I walked away. 2 days later, I had this contract in my hand. I said, what the heck is this? She said, we sold your land. Sign this paper. So I have to be very careful about what I would say to someone, because it would be done in about 48 hours. 48 hours, we had a contract, she sold the land. So that's what she was. And you're absolutely right. I always brag about her. So I got a chance to do that. And that's because of her we do this business hour, because that was her idea. Folks, you're listening to Open Forum. We have Malisha Patel, who's the CEO of Memorial Hermann Sugarland and Southwest, in here in the studio, Open Forum. How have you then mentored? Give us some, if you have any ideas or stories about youngsters under your wings who have now risen to a certain level, if you have any.
I have we get to do something within Memorial Hermann. We have Women Leaders of Memorial Hermann, which I sit on the steering committee of. And the subcommittee I'm over is the mentoring circles. And so every year we grow anywhere from 150 to 200 new mentees. And we set them up with mentors within the organization. And that's something I truly enjoy.
So are these employees or
all employees? They're all employees. And then with Trinity University, I sit on their alumni board, and as those students are interviewing and going through their process for their residency, I have the opportunity to do mock interviews with them.
Very nice.
And that's something I enjoy doing. When I have folks reach out to me, I make sure I make it a point to respond. I mentor maybe 2 or 3 different individuals a year. And I also make it a point to continue to mentor myself.
We're going to take a couple of calls out here, but before that, what I'm going to do is, and we're going to shut up the camera we're going to turn the camera somewhere else, because we're going to make y'all switch places. Our cameraman says Malisha needs to be in the middle, and I never say no to a cameraman. So
she used to be on the red
right in the middle.
If
you don't mind, Jagat, come on.
I don't mind, of course I don't.
Yeah, and then we have right now. Let's do it right now. Yeah.
Okay.
We also have a caller that we want to talk to, and Yogi Patel, who Yogesh Bhai had called. I want him to call us back because he got tired of me putting him on hold. But this is Mr. Dixit, who is also one of our I mean, he's a great guy who does great stuff for Indo-American Chamber of Commerce of Greater Houston. So, Malisha, you have your phone on. Go ahead, Vijay. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing very good. There's not a whole lot I can say. She's been speaking for this long, and she's the praiseworthy individual. I would like to just add one comment to the whole conversation that if you have talent, you are going to shine irrespective of all the abnormalities, all the restrictions, reservations. You don't need a special reservation for to be successful. And Malisha is the live example of that group. She's talented, and she's proven it that she's shining, and she's proven it very well. That's all I'd like to say.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You are an awesome guy yourself. He's been our guest out here once with the Chamber of Commerce. He did an amazing job while sitting in the hot seat out there. We want to call it the hot seat, but actually it's not even a hot seat. It's a very cool seat. Well, let's go to our next caller. Vijay, thank you so much, sir, and thanks for everything you do in the community. Let's go to Mr. Yogesh Bhai. Yogi Bhai, how are you doing, sir?
Good afternoon, guys.
Yes, sir.
First of all, I'd like to thank Open Forum, Indo-American Chamber of Commerce, and Dr. Manisha Patel for giving us an opportunity to see what our Indian community and our achieve efforts like that, and who are involved with the community. There are maybe a lot of people have in a higher position, but when it comes to them getting involved in all the other aspects of the community, it makes us so proud of it. And I think, like she mentioned about Sonal Ben and we know Sonal, how she was valuable to our community. So I really like to congratulate all of you guys to bringing us this wonderful show.
Thank you. Thank you, Bhai. And next week, we're going to talk to you about cricket, the debacle. Hopefully, you'll have a good result next time.
Yeah, Yogesh, we need to talk about it.
Definitely, I'll be there.
Yeah, thank you. We'll get yeah. So let's go to our next caller. This is Arvind Bhai. Arvind Bhai, how are you doing, sir? And thank you for listening to Open Forum and calling us in the studio. By the way, others who want to call, next 12 minutes, we're going to just take calls and then we're going to talk about COVID. Our number out here is 1-888-749-1035. 1-888-749-1035. Let's go to Arvind Bhai. Sir, how are you doing today? Hello? Hello? Mr. Patel? Yes. Can you call back, I guess? Just please call us back, Mr. Patel. I don't know if I got you or you put me on hold or I put you on hold. I think both of us are struggling out here. But call us back and we'd be happy to talk to you one more time. So, oh my God, this is exactly what I wanted to do. This is called hard work. Hold it and talk. We'll take a break. We are not taking a break. We are absolutely not taking a break, but we're going to have someone who's going to help you out here. In the meantime, we'll take Arvind Bhai again. Let's see if we can get it this time. Mr. Patel, are you on the line this time?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, it's not Mr. Patel. That's right. Oh, hi. How are you?
Good. I want to congratulate my mom for being such an amazing. I want to congratulate my mom for being such an amazing person. We love her so much.
Hey.
So sweet. What's your name?
Jay.
Jay.
The older one.
The older one. I love the name. He's so.
Hi, my name's Bobby. I want to congratulate my mom for being amazing mom, and I love her so much.
Lovely.
Wow. That's so cute.
Thank you, Jay and Avi. I'll give you extra iPad time today.
Oh, well, and I think you have a third boy also there called Bhavesh. Where's Bhavesh? Yeah. Hey, how are you doing, Bhavesh?
Hey, Dr. Butcher.
Hey, good man. How are you doing? First of all, happy birthday a few months ago. And you have an amazing wife, and we are so proud that she is in the studio with us. But every time I talk to her about you, she says, you are even more amazing. Is that some deal you all have? What's the deal, man?
Yeah, I pay her to say it.
She also just signaling that she hasn't received a check yet, so I don't know what to do. All right. Hey, listen, you all be safe. You all be safe. Have a great summer ahead, whatever is left of it. I know school has started. And in the last half an hour, we're going to be talking to Melisha about the COVID situation, the hospitals, and the burden that the hospitals have right now, and how the burden hopefully can be shared and eased if the community just behaves the way they should. Right. So thank you again. I'm going to go to our next caller out here. Let's go to a nurse who is also, she is a nurse. She works at one of the memorial hospitals. She's a good friend of mine. Bindu, how are you doing, ma'am?
Hey.
How are you?
I'm fine. It's been a long time since I got to hear your show. I'm always such a big fan of you guys. And I love your show. And I'm driving and I have it turned on. I was excited when I find a memorial person there. I'm still with Memorial Greater Heights and 31 years now.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
I just want to call and say hello and continue to do whatever.
Well, Bindu, I obviously I'm not going to let you go without asking you a question. Tell me, how come you've been with the Memorial for such a long, long time?
Subodh, I have other options in Houston. That's not a problem at all. Mm-hmm. And, it was, our CEO was, Dr. Callender was like making rounds the other day and my director, introduced me. I just happened to be at the desk because everybody else goes and hides when they see administration, So I was there and she introduced me to him and she said, Bindu's been with us for, that many years. And so he asked me the same question. And I just told him, I said, I'm here because of my own attitude. I come with a good attitude. And I've been here. I know I have choices. I can go other places. I have a Memorial Southwest, which is like 5 minutes from where I live. Mm-hmm. I've been at, it used to be Northwest. Now it's Greater Heights. I've just grown up here with the hospital. And it's very tempting to actually go to Sugar Land, or to Southwest.
Melisha will take you to Southwest anytime.
Yes.
Will she? If she does, I would love to go. Because,
wow, yeah.
I'll be honest with you, because because things at Greater Heights are not good.
Let's not talk about that. I think what we're going to do is you can always call the HR and I'll tell you what, you just put my name as a reference. I know Bindu so well. She would be an amazing nurse wherever she goes. Yeah. She's an OB/GYN nurse, by the way, and we need them in our part of town also. So, Bindu, thank you very much. And we'll get you in our studio one day because she also is a very sweet singer. She sings beautifully. Really? Oh, yes. But not today. Does. But not today. So, folks, thank you for listening. Yeah, thanks. Thanks for calling in. Our number is 1-888-749-1035. We have about 8 minutes if you want to talk to her. In the last half an hour, we do want to talk about the COVID situation. How does Memorial, and that, it's a good question. How does Memorial retain the nurses? Because it's very difficult to retain nurses, especially in this environment right now.
It's a really good question. And I'll tell you that right now our staff, our nursing team, all of our hospital team has been extremely stretched. And, we've been talking about the nursing shortage for many, many years, mm-hmm. and it still exists. And the one thing that I think keeps our staff is the culture, because staff, we're the Mecca of healthcare in Houston. Right. We have so many great organizations, MD Anderson, Methodist, HCA. So all of our healthcare workers have many choices, and they're all very competitive when it comes to salaries for each of the different respective fields. But I think at the end of the day, it's feeling valued and having a great culture.
Awesome. One of the questions that always comes to my mind is, as a CEO, you obviously interview a lot of people for different roles. What is your advice to folks who come in an interview, especially in healthcare, where they're trying to rise up in the administrative? What are you looking for in those folks?
The first thing I look for is someone that's prepared. Come into an interview and be prepared for the interview. I'm looking for someone that has experience and has, done, one thing I've always had people tell me is you got to differentiate yourself. And so I like to see candidates that have tried to differentiate themselves. What have you done for the community? What have you done for your own self-development? It's not just the work experience that's important. It's everything else as well. And so that's something that I would encourage as people continue to grow in their career.
Yeah. And a lot of CEOs also let people go. What's the kind of a profile you would let a person go if he or she did something or didn't do something? I know it's a tough question, but it's real out there, Jagat, because people who go in for interviews, if they don't prepare themselves, people who are in the job and they don't come up to the level that your boss or your mentor will, absolutely, they will be like, especially in corporations like big hospitals, they will be. So, but at your level, you do not really probably not, unless for the executive positions. Probably not, but right. So. Right.
I think the number one thing that would probably drive me for something automatic, and there's always a process with HR, is something that's ethical. Like always making sure you're doing the right.
Right. I mean, negligence, something like that. If I'm wrong, is also part of it. Is really not the decision for them if nothing's been done to let them go, but it's also financial constraint or part getting, what would you say to that?
It just depends on the environment when we're having to make tough decisions.
Right.
We've been fortunate we haven't had to have a rift or anything along those lines in a long time, but those periods do come.
Right. But Malaysia, with this shortage of nurses right now, because of the situation, the Texas government is getting nurses from outside.
Right.
And I'm sure you do too at this time.
Correct.
Yep.
With that kind of shortages of nurses, whoever is interviewing, do they really go into the detail of it? Because, right now, okay, you have the experience, come and work for us.
No, so when we get state nurses and agency nurses, there is already agreements put in place with those employers. So that's an entire step that we don't have to go through at the hospital setting. And so we are ready to bring on staff, orient them to the area, and have them start taking care of patients.
Are they the direct employee of the Memorial Hermann, or they comes through the contract?
Depending if they're from the state or if they're contract, it would be through the contract.
And is it because of their license, but the different state licenses, or?
It's a reciprocity. So I do not know how many states would have the reciprocity.
And we work directly with, we have a lead person within the system that works directly with the different agencies, and the agreements are put in place.
Folks, you're listening to Open Forum. So, Jagat, before we get into some more serious stuff, let's ask a few easy questions, right? What is the best dish that you cook that Bhavish and your kids love the most? And how do you get time to do that?
We should have asked them like they're on the phone.
Bhavish can give us a call back.
But there may be a request like, okay, look, it's Sunday evening and this is what I want to eat. The kids say, I want to eat this. And Mom, you cook it.
Yeah, what is their favorite meal that you cook for them?
The favorite 2 meals that I make for them is enchiladas or butter chicken.
Desi khana kuch nahi hai?
Butter chicken is the
no desi khana, no khichdi, no khichdi in Patel family.
No khichdi, but it's not on their top 5.
Oh my!
Every kid loves butter chicken.
So let me turn it around. What is something that Bhavish cooks for you when you ask him to do so?
Oh gosh.
What does he cook?
But Bhavish does not cook, but he's a wonderful sous chef. He does a lot of the prepping.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's very important.
Well, that's a pretty big part of cooking though, right?
Yeah.
In some ways.
He started making scrambled eggs.
Nice.
And chai? No. He boils water. That's easy.
He's actually told me, he's like, I'm not going to learn to make chai because then I'm going to have to make it. I was like,
so Malaysia, Malaysia, you told us about your childhood and how your parents were strict and and they were hardworking folks in their own business. You have 2 children now. What's the vision you have for them? How are you going to be as strict as your parents were with you if they were strict, or are you in totally a different generation and those young kids are totally 4 generations down. How is Militia and Bhavish, how are y'all going to do with those kids? They're awesome kids. I love them. By the way, they called me Kaka one day. I'm like, we were in San Antonio. We had a meeting out there, and Sona and I were walking, and Militia comes up to me and says, those 2 kids of mine, they call you Kaka and Kaki. I'm like, what the heck is that? I don't do that. I will do that. He said, no, they love you as Kaka and Kaki. So how are those 2 kids going to be growing up in your household?
We would love to instill in them the same values that our parents instilled in us. They may just look a little different.
Right.
For I think for Bhavish and I, success as being parents is raising good, kind kids.
Good.
That's
nice.
what we want.
Nice. Just like the parents are. Fantastic. Folks, you're listening to Open Forum. We're going to talk about COVID and how it has affected the entire world and the country, the state, and a county, Fort Bend County and other counties around here. What a mess it has been. And this is, it's like a Waterloo for a lot of the CEOs out there. But we're going to win the battle. And we're going to talk to Militia about how it has affected the hospitals. Militia, tell us about before COVID, how the hospital was doing, and after COVID, what has changed and what is the challenges that y'all have.
Well, I think we're all still looking for, normal to happen, but it's been 18 months and, we are on a very different period.
Right.
What I'll tell you, what hasn't changed is, we're still taking care of patients, so whether it's that stroke patient or the patient with the heart attack, but now we have a whole new element and we've had to make some very significant changes in how we deliver care. Never would have thought that we're going to have visitor restrictions at the level that we do, but it's the right thing to do to keep people safe and to protect our patients and our employees. But normal operations, you're taking care of patients, you're focusing on your strategies, you're growing your services. But with COVID, this was new to all of us.
Correct.
And you would agree, because as a physician, I feel like our doctors, they know how to take care of patients. That's what you went to med school and residency. But this was new to everybody at the same time. The whole country was learning together on how we're going to take care of COVID-19 patients. And, early on, there was a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear. Right. People were scared to take care of patients. And, we lost some employees that said, my family wants me to stay home where I'm safe. And we can't blame them. Right. They have to do what's right for them and their family.
Right.
And so we've had a lot of different changes. I'll tell you that I've learned more about N95 masks than I thought I ever would. I mean, I can tell you the make, the model, the size. But that's what everyone's had to do in the healthcare environment. Is we've had to continuously shift and be agile with new CDC recommendations that sometimes have changed within the hour, but within the week. And that's what the past 18 months have been. There have been a lot of changes.
And to implement those changes, it's so hard within that short period, right?
Exactly. Because it takes an entire workforce to be moving in the same direction with every change. And change is coming from the federal level, from the state level, from CDC, and we have it from the healthcare system. What I've been really impressed with is all of our healthcare systems have been working together, where the CEOs of the Texas Medical Center have worked together in, communicating, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is what we need to do for the greater Houston area. I have the opportunity to work with my counterparts in Fort Bend County, and we work together. And we're going to mandate masking, and we do it together. And that's really allowed us to be in sync. But I will tell you, and I want everyone to hear that this is the worst surge that we've had. After vaccinations have been available.
Right. In June, it had gone down. June, July, and now boom, it's gone up. Right. So how inundated is your hospital or the system?
So I'll tell you, this is the worst that it's been. We have, in addition to the medical care that we're providing, as I mentioned, your regular medicine patients with maybe pneumonia or, your heart attacks or the stroke patients, we have a high number of COVID patients in-house. And I'll tell you, most of those—
Your ICU beds are completely full right now.
They're completely full. And most of our COVID hospitalizations are unvaccinated patients.
Right, unvaccinated patient.
It is. And our ERs are stretched. Our ICUs are stretched. Our staff is taxed. They are tired.
Right.
They're exhausted. They've been at this for a very long period. And what's unfortunate is this is preventable.
Yeah.
These hospitalizations are preventable with, if you could medically take the vaccination, you should. And it's not just for yourself, but do it for others, for humanity.
Is Memorial Hermann staff is fully vaccinated?
We have asked our staff, and we made it mandatory a few weeks ago, and we have a time period where all of our employees will.
Okay.
So in other words, they will be.
They will be.
Have to be.
And I think it's
And I think it is absolutely needed, though.
Yeah.
This is one of those eras in our lives, all of our lives, that we've never seen before. And, where a hospital is to function so normally when things are normal, has to really readjust, Jalabai. And it is just not the duty of the hospital to do well and take care of patients. I think it's the duty of society to make sure we don't overburden the hospital system.
I totally agree with you.
Because the expectation of a patient, and rightly so, is when I go to the hospital, I want to be taken care of 100%. We have zero failure.
Right.
Now, the zero failure will only come if you give an opportunity to the hospital administrators and the nurses and the doctors to do the right stuff. But the society has to do its part to make sure that everybody else does the right stuff. And Manisha said it so right. We talk about vaccination. I know we have some people who call us all the time. They never want to be vaccinated.
I know.
And they come up with different theories.
I know. I just think it's so crazy. Anyway.
But the question becomes, and here's the data out there that most of the people who are admitted are unvaccinated. I get a lot of calls.
Yes,
patients are calling me, and some of them have been vaccinated, but they never got admitted. I'm taking care of them at home. Stay home, do this, do this, do this. The others, the parents are calling me, or the children are calling me that daddy's in ICU and he never got a vaccination. What do I do now? So the first thing I'm like,
I'm sorry, but in the new admissions that you're seeing recently, is it a much younger population or is it an older population?
Much younger population.
Yes, because I tell you what, I know through my wife's practice that there are a lot of younger folks talking about 12 years, 10 years old, they're COVID positive. And it just, I cannot just believe it. And when someone would ask their parents, are you vaccinated? And the answer is no. How as a physician can you force someone to get yourself vaccinated?
Right.
I mean, I'm sure that you face the same.
We do.
Yeah.
We do. And
so how do you handle those parents, particularly when the pediatric...
The fact of the matter is, Jagadbhai, that it is a personal decision. But the other fact of the matter is there's data out there that, we see it in the hospitals, 98% unvaccinated. And so we can only...
I agree, it's a personal...
We cannot force anyone.
We cannot force. But at the same time, my health is equally important than a person that was not vaccinated.
Exactly.
I think we need to just find incentive. I mean, I know this is a country where you give incentives, but just to be protecting yourself. I mean, protecting others around you and the loved ones near you should be, I think they have to be more incentives, like explain it to people or more education about it, like what it's doing.
Those people that who are not vaccinated at this time, I don't think the education would teaching them or talking to them is going to make any difference. Unless someone falls in the family sick or they themselves, then they'll all of a sudden think, oh my God, I better take a vaccine,
So Malisha, talking about that, I'll tell you that I really commend Memorial Hermann, and I've had a great experience.
Right.
So last July, I had COVID and I had bilateral pneumonia, and I was admitted at Memorial Hermann in the medical center, and I spent 7 nights there. Wow. And I would say they did a phenomenal job. It was so good. And so when I came out of it, when the vaccination was offered, and here I know that I've had antibodies and I'm coming out at the end of July, starting in December when the vaccination was offered, because I work in the healthcare, I was the first one to take it. And I faced a lot of people telling me,
why?
I literally to my face saying, you're stupid that you actually did this. And I said, you know what I went through that experience.
Right.
And it could have been, if I had the vaccination and the symptoms were not so severe and I wasn't fighting for my life,
Right.
it would have made such a difference. So it doesn't matter. And
So
if
you
it's-
wouldn't be hospitalized.
Exactly.
Exactly.
I said if there's a different variant or something happens, I was the first one to take the
I know.
vaccine.
Right. Let's take some out-of-state
Sure.
callers also. We have someone that Melisha, you know really well, and she knows you definitely. A good friend of mine, her name is Savit, and she is an ICU nurse in California. She listens to our show by the way, we have a lot of people who listen to us from outside. She's the only outspoken one, Savit. Everybody else is like hiding under the table when we call them.
Well, the guy comes calling from Chicago. He's also
He calls us very often. Okay, Savit, how you doing, young lady?
Hi, pretty good. I'm Alicia. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So, yeah, go ahead, Savit.
I haven't done my research in a while because of the Delta. I've been over in California enjoying this nice weather. Been at the beach, I just had a patient the other day that got the first shot of a Pfizer vaccine. Young patient too. I think she was like 23. Ended up with a brain aneurysm. No other comorbidities, healthy person, no children, anything. So it's like, this is a catch-22. I'm getting the vaccine. In our hospital right now, we're half of the people that are hospitalized are vaccinated. The other half are unvaccinated. So it's like giving a live vaccine, that live virus that is injected in you. So you're going to test positive and you're going to come out with a lot of symptoms.
Right.
But this is a new one for me to have a patient with a brain aneurysm. I think hers was a subarachnoid.
Right. So obviously, Savit, we want to do a whole show on vaccinations with we're going to be calling a group called the Indian Doctors Association one Saturday, and we're going to talk about all that, get some infectious diseases, some immunologists, because that is a whole show by itself. The side effects are very, very, very rare. However, when you take the vaccination, the protection is very, very, very high.
Right.
So you will get some people. Look, I take a flu shot every year. I have
Everyone, right? Yeah.
and when I get
No one questions that.
when I get the flu, it's a much milder flu.
Correct.
So the same thing,
It's a lot
the lives,
not life-threatening. So
The
that's
lives-
a major
Right. It
difference.
is, a matter of fact, when you were not here 3 weeks back,
right,
me and Dr. Nikhil,
right,
we did 2 hours of vaccine show.
exactly.
2 hours.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we had so many calls and we did not bring politics into the picture.
Right, we don't need to. But I'm just saying, I would, as a healthcare professional, I would still put out there that, look, you get vaccinated. If again, it's a personal choice. You have to sign that paper before you get it. But I would recommend it, and I would recommend it to all.
I would highly recommend
groups and other groups that are over 12. As the CDC keeps telling us the age differences. Well, if kids above 6 get a flu shot, kids above 6, when they get this COVID shot, they should go get it. We will be
absolutely
advocating that in our office.
Right. I mean, when they go to school, they require all the shots.
They do. This will become one of those.
I think
COVID
it should become one of the
Yeah.
mandatory shots for the kids.
COVID is not going away. It's never going to go.
It's never going.
But it's going to teach us a lot, and we're going to learn a lot. And yes, there may be side effects that we're going to learn while we give all these vaccinations. Look, let me tell you one thing, Ms. Savit. Polio, let's take polio as an example. We used to, in the United States of America, give polio as an oral vaccination. Oral.
Right.
And yet we knew the side effect of that was that 2 out of 1 million doses that we give will actually contract because it's a live vaccine.
Right.
The CDC came out and challenged the medical community and said, you need to develop something that will be 0. We're talking about 0 out of 1 million.
Right.
And we came up with the IPV.
Right.
It's an injectable polio vaccine. All my pediatric patients who are listening to me, well, they are not listening, their parents are. They will know that they get an injectable polio vaccine.
Right.
And we know it's safe because in India, however, they still give oral. They give oral. Because again, when you give 1 million, 2 may contract that, but the 900 and whatever the heck, the minus 1 million minus 2 will not, and that they'll be protected. And that's what we're looking at. This is going to be a challenge to the research to make even safer vaccination as time goes by.
Listen, even in politics, As a matter of fact, the minority leader in the Senate, he had a polio when he was young.
Yeah.
He took a polio vaccine in 40s and 50s, okay? And he survived. He was telling the entire America, take the vaccine. For God's sake, take the vaccine.
Right.
So I'm the example of getting that polio vaccine and I survived.
Right.
Right.
What more can, this politician can do? I mean, I just don't get it.
Yeah. Folks, thank you, Sarit, so much for,
Thank you.
and I know you're coming down here in October. Maybe we'll get you in our studio and talk about California and the beaches that you usually go to out there.
Well, this coming September, there's it's a recall election, so.
Yeah, well,
we can talk to her
about that. Folks, you're listening to Open Forum. We have about 15 minutes, but I know you are very, very busy. I need 2 or 3 advice from you. One is I want you to talk to our youngsters or the parents who are listening. Yep. You have broken a lot of glass ceilings to reach where you are. First is, where's your next step in life? What are you going to be doing next?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Right now I'm happy with what I'm doing.
Right.
I don't know what the next challenge will be.
CEO of the Memorial Herman Group.
I don't know. And what I really enjoy about my current role is that I'm still very closely connected to the workforce. Right. Being able to have those relationships with the physicians and the employees and the leaders and the community. I really enjoy being in the community, and it'll have to be something better than that. And I don't know what that is
at this point. You don't know.
Right. Yeah. Well, so, what kind of advice would I give? And I'm going to share twofold.
Sure.
One, not to doubt yourself, right? And so I'll give an example that it's taken me many years to share this example. But when I was out of my residency and I was working, I had a mentor with a very prestigious healthcare system in the country. And he said, I'd love for you to meet with my team and one day meet the CEO of the company, and maybe you could come over to this organization. And I remember that meeting that I had with the CEO, and I was just, in my 20s meeting with this CEO of a hospital. And he said, Melisha, are you open to moving for different opportunities? And I said, well, no, because I'm getting married. And, he said, okay, well, congratulations. And, we just finished our conversation. And I remember walking out of that meeting thinking, oh my gosh, what was I thinking? I'm not even engaged. I'm not even dating anybody. But my mindset was, I don't want to move. I want to stay close to my parents because I'm going to get married one day. Yeah. And, I share that story now because I don't want anyone to limit what potential they have without trying.
That is amazing. Yeah. Right. And but at that point, you had that feeling that this is what I want to do.
This is what I want to do.
But then you realize right away that really, you could do.
What are you talking about, Melissa? You're not even engaged. You're not even dating anyone. So why are you limiting yourself? So don't limit yourself. Okay. And as far as what other advice would I have for parents or the youth and anyone is, always having a growth mindset. Learning from people, learning from your parents, from colleagues, reading books, continuously learning. I have a mentor, Rod Brace, and Rod, and he once gave me the advice, run into that burning building that no one wants to walk into, and you're going to learn so much. Wow. And so, when no one wants to raise their hand, raise your hand.
Right. And so you did, huh?
And so I have. And that's been a great advice for me. Take on the difficult challenges because then you are going to be better for it. Yeah. And then lastly, don't lose yourself. Always make sure you have your values at your core. Mm-hmm. What kind of person you want to be in, and don't ever stray away from that.
So someone just texted me, do you then distinguish between work and when you come out home? Or do you mix the two sometimes, work and staying at home? Saturday and Sunday when you're off with the kids, do you ever think of, oh my gosh, I need to go and finish those, whatever you have to do?
I try not to. I there's a few hours in the morning before the kids wake up on the weekend where I may wake up at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning and catch up with emails before the house wakes up.
Right.
Or Sunday evening when the kids go to bed and, Bhavish may be watching TV and I'll just catch up. But I really try to give that undivided quality time. But I'll tell you, in my role, we're on 24/7.
Yeah.
There's always going to be something that comes up, but I'll do my best to be present where I'm at.
Jagat and Smriti, that's the tiger mom mentality. Tigresses, they wake up 4 in the morning, go hunt. And then when the sun is out, they're feeding those young children, resting, and then again going on and hunting. And, that's why women are much stronger than men. Men can do
You're
that.
talking about tigers, lioness only kills, right?
I'm talking about
lions never do. The lions never do.
I'm talking about those cats out there. Cats do that.
So, well, anyway, you being a woman, you had many hurdles that you crossed, just like she was talking about. But being an Indian American, probably it's doubly difficult to reach the positions that you have. Talk about not particular incidences, but the overall thinking, or your experience that being an Indian American woman, talk to the entire audience here, listening audience, so what do you expect, out there in the world?
That is a fantastic question. It's just not the Indian Americans, the Pakistani Americans.
Right, I agree. Minority group,
the culture, women, Indian and, they are just so different. Right.
And I think it's an expectation. And I'll tell you, there have been many times where I've been hurt, where I may have someone in the family or an auntie in the community say, well, when are you going to make time for your family?
So true.
And that hurts. That gets right at your heart.
Very true.
Because as a mom, it doesn't matter if you're a working mom, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a professional. I mean, who could say they make enough time for their kids, for family, and for friends? I mean, we're always balancing time, and we have to be there for each other.
Exactly.
But I feel like that being judged, not being good enough, or being questioned on
just because you're working.
Just because I'm working.
Right.
Actually, in a lot of gatherings, and I've noticed exactly what she said, is even amongst very educated people, when I sit down sometimes and they look at me, and they're talking, and they'll just say, I really devoted all my time. I don't work. And it makes you feel like, am I not normal? Like, am I not doing the right thing? Yes.
I would just walk away from that.
No, I would be doubly, proud of someone like both of you all.
Right, absolutely.
I agree with you. And I feel that. But not everybody thinks. And then they make it short. They'll say, I spent a lot. I actually devoted my whole life to my kids, and I did not do this.
Is it that working mom doesn't do it?
Exactly.
I mean, that's so stupid of them to ask a question like that.
Melisha said, you wake up early and do that. Yeah. I think that we work doubly hard.
I agree.
And I try to keep in mind, positive intent. Maybe that's not how they grew up. And, and that's not how my mom grew up. My mom focused on raising the family. Correct. And she did it for
that doesn't mean that you are raised in a better way and you're the way that you're raising your kids. Okay? Yep. The whole comparison is totally wrong.
Yes, we're going to get to our last caller. Okay. Our last caller of the day, again from California. I think these Californians are trying to take over Texas, or they're just going to try to move out here. Mr. Shaheen Voya Saab, how are you doing?
Wash.
Oh, Miss. Sorry, Miss. Yeah. I'm so messed up with my gender identification out here. Madam, how are you?
Yes. I'm fine. I'm calling out of town, but I'm listening to your radio. I'm in Seattle right now.
There you go.
And because I knew that Melisha was coming on the radio, I wanted to say this is that a big thank you to her, because my mom was at your facility in the month of May for her total knee replacement surgery. Yeah. And from the nurse coordinator, Amy, and to everybody, they really worked very hard on my mom. And they made sure that before we left the OT, PT, everybody, she was, earlier before that, we were, for her another leg, we were at another facility, at another hospital, and we had little complications. But now at this facility, we were very happy. So thank you so very much. And your hospital is doing an excellent job.
Thank you so much.
Amy gets a promotion. I can see that. Malisha, like Amy, I know that girl.
Amy's amazing. She is an amazing nurse.
Yeah, Miss Vera, what on earth are you doing in Seattle when Texas is so cool out here? I mean, not so cool, so hot out here.
I come here every year. My sister lives here, so I come here in every summer to see them and then spend my time. At night it's in 50s and during the day it's in 60s.
But I'm so proud that Open Forum makes such an impression on you that Saturday you leave everything and just listen to us at 4 o'clock, even though you're in Seattle. I love that.
Yes, even I'm on my vacation. We were at lunch somewhere just now, and everybody was saying, "Well, get off this phone, get off this." I said, "No, this is very important.
This is very important. We can do that." I know. I had a patient a couple of days ago. I had a patient in my office. The gentleman was there, and I've known him for a long time. And he told me, "I heard Malisha is coming on your station." I'm like, "Wait a minute, you listen to us?" He said, "Are you kidding? 4 o'clock on Saturday, my wife doesn't even talk to me. She's glued to the radio, and she makes me also sit down and listen." So, Ali Bhai, thank you very much for listening to us. If he's listening, Kareem Ali, he's my friend, and he's a patient of ours. And so, Malisha, I don't know how many thousands of people have listened to you from all over the world. So I want to take this opportunity to thank you, Malisha, for whatever you're doing and so much you're doing for the community. You are a role model for a lot of people, old and young. It doesn't matter what age you are.
I mean, she's a role model for me. I would say that. Well, just like being in healthcare.
It's the work ethics. It is giving back to the community. Exactly. It is balancing your work, home and family, friends, the society, and it's just amazing. So we wish you nothing but the best in life. And I'll give you about 2 minutes to wrap up but before that, Jagat Bhai, I think you had an announcement to make. I'll let Jagdeep make that announcement actually. Right. Jagdeep, please go ahead and make that announcement because you do a better job than I do.
Okay.
Good. You need to put that radio off and then please make that announcement about the postponed distinguished lecture. Yeah, thank you.
Distinguished. Yeah. I did want to thank all of you once again for this amazing program today. Malisha, you really hit it out of the ballpark. Thank you very much. You were very inspiring. I also wanted to bring to the attention of all the listeners across the globe. Now that you have 100,000 listeners, we have gone virtual with the IACCGH Shell Distinguished Lecture on September the 1st. It will no longer be a live event in the spirit of abundant caution. And we will be virtual. It's on September the 1st from 11:30 in the morning, Houston time, Central Time. Anybody anywhere in the world who wants to listen to the police chief and understand what he's doing in the Houston community for our protection needs to send an email to info@iaccgh.com. I repeat, info@iaccgh.com. Once we receive your email, we will send you a link to attend the program. We do need you to be registered. We do need you to email us so that we can register you and send you a link. Again, it's the police chief of Houston talking about what he is doing to make our city most safe and secure. It's the IACCGH Shell Distinguished Lecture, and it's September the 1st at 11:30. With that, back to you, Subodh, and thank you very much again, Malisha, and to the team at Open Forum for this wonderful program today.
Thank you, Jagat. And I want to thank the Indo-American Chamber of Commerce. I want to thank Open Forum, Jagat, Dr. Butcher, Smithy. It is truly a pleasure to be here with you all in conversation. Smithy, you mentioned it. I didn't know if we were going to make it 2 hours. I see you probably learned everything you want to know about me in 15, but I really enjoyed the dialogue and the conversation today.
You know what I love most about it? Yeah, no. I think what I'm like really taken back is your humility, and I really appreciate that.
Well,
Thank you so much.
Fantastic. I want to take this opportunity also to thank the Indo-American Chamber of Commerce of Greater Houston. They do a great job. Madras Pavilion, that's also known as India Summers, Arling Chinese Bistro Cuisine. I don't know if you've been there, Jagat Bhai. I think I took you there once.
Well, I just went there last Sunday.
Last Sunday. And Manisha, have you been to that Arling? We got to take you there one day.
Yeah. I've never been
there. Okay, well, what the heck? I'm going to take you out. We'll make Darshak pay for that one. Darshak Thakkar, he's been quiet out there. Usko kuch to bolne do. He's like, I will pay for it. Don't worry, I will pay for it. So I'm just kidding out there. And I want to also thank Udupi Cafe. Satish Rao has been a great guy. Kirti Jewelers. Kirti Jewelers, he keeps telling.
These are unsung heroes, man.
Yeah, these are unsung heroes, as you said it. We're going to stay tuned to 103.5 Hum FM.
Right.
Next Saturday, we're going to talk about cricket. We will. We got Yogi Patel and his team out here.
Into the studio.
We're also going to be talking about Afghanistan because we cannot,
we will talk about Afghanistan.
We want to just, condolences to the 13 soldiers, families, and condolences to the entire country because we really lost some heroes out there.
Yes.
Which should never have happened. But we'll talk about that next Saturday. And till then, again, thank you, Malisha. On behalf of Smriti and Jagat, my name is Subodh. And thank you, Thakkar Saab, Darshak Bhai.
Yeah, what a special thing.
Yeah, can you turn the camera on yourself? Oh, come on, Darshak Bhai. Let's give a round of applause right there.
Yes.
Thank you so much. And folks, stay tuned to one of the best music programs called Naya Andaz, and it is run by none other than Nabil and Rehan, and they should be here in the studio anytime now. If only I can.
It's a great program.
It is a fantastic program, so please stay tuned.